Welcome back to the News Hour and to our coverage of the US elections. Of course, the winner of the presidential election will have ramifications for countries around the world, not least here in Turkey. So let's take you to Ankara, where our diplomatic correspondent Andrew Hopkins is waiting to take over. Andrew.
Thank you very much, Aaron. Yes, welcome to Ankara, the capital of Turkey. There are 85 million people living in this country, tens of millions of people in the coming hours going to be voting in the United States to choose the next president. But the people here, many of them, are going to be very interested in what that result is going to be and how it's going to affect US-Turkey relations and also their lives. So we're going to get into that in the next few minutes with an expert panel of guests. So joining me now to speak about all of these issues, get into it in a bit more detail, is Valeria Giannotta, who is the Scientific Director of the Observatory on Turkey, the Center for Studies of International Politics in Rome, and also Ömer Kizilcik, who is a non-resident fellow at the Atlantic Council. So thank you very much for joining us, both of us, today on this cold day in the Turkish capital. The obvious question, I think, in all of this is we've got the presidential complex here right behind us. The obvious question is, what does the Turkish president think about the election? Who does he want to win? Because he hasn't really said very much about it. What do you think's going on behind the scenes? First of all, to you, Valeria.
Thank you very much. Actually, as you said, there has not been any official statement regarding any preference related to the outcome of US elections. Definitely, the Turkey president, but also the Turkish people, will prefer an American leader who will get aligned more, as much as possible, to the Turkish stance at national and regional and international level as well. We all know that all across history there have been some red lines among US and Turkey that no leader, despite from the Republican or Democrats party, was able to solve, like the American support to the Kurdish groups in Syria and also with some spillover effects also within the Turkish territories. And another pending critical issue is the issue of the S-400 defense system, which is still at a knot of the question between US and Turkey when it comes to the national priorities. When it comes to the regional needs and the regional stance of Turkey, definitely Turkey and Turkish presidents is working very hard in order to find a solution for the ongoing conflict in Gaza, to the Israeli war on Gaza, with the enlargement also of the violence towards the world region. We are facing an increasing violence in Lebanon, and now we are also afraid of the spillover effects of Iran and the retaliation actions from Iran towards Israel. Therefore, since Turkey is located in a very critical region, the need is just to keep the stability as much as possible, and the Turkish diplomacy has been very active on this page since always, I would like to say. So I do believe that the preference will cast towards an American leader who will decrease the violence, decrease the tension, and will work hard for the escalation in the Middle East, but also in the Black Sea region, because we shouldn't forget that there is still a war going on between Russia and Ukraine. And Turkey has stood up as the main key actor as a mediator, actually, in trying to create a dialogue between the two warring parties. Turkey also has created the so-called grain corridor, which was acknowledged by the whole international community as well. When it comes to macro level, indeed, Turkey also will prefer a candidate, a leader, and a president who will support the Turkish line aiming at reforming the UN architecture, the UN system, specifically the UN Security Council. President Erdogan has been very vocal in this, in calling for the urgent need of reforming the UN Security Council under the motto, the world is bigger than five. Because actually we are living in a in a very hectic time when the international system is changing. It's not just a perfect unipolar system when the US is the main hegemonic leader any longer, but we are slightly shifting towards a multilateral, a multipolar international system when we see some new emerging countries such as Turkey taking the lead in some scenarios such as the Middle East and the so-called enlarged Mediterranean. And also the current international system, international structure of the UN Security Council does not include the so-called global south. And this is another issue very dear to Turkish President Erdogan. So I do believe that, Turkey will prefer someone, a leader who will meet as much as possible the needs of the dossier of Turkey that are still on the table.
And Omar, what do you think about all of this? Because in the past, if foreign politicians express opinions on Turkish elections, Turkish politicians get very annoyed about this. Do you think this is maybe one of the reasons why the Turkish government is staying quiet, or they don't have strong opinions on this? Where do you think the thinking is at the moment?
I think the Turkish president has definitely his personal preference, because he has been in contact with Trump. He has a working relationship with him. He had a working relationship with him. But he also knows the Biden administration and has his relationship with the team of Harris. So I truly believe that he has a preference. However, he will likely not articulate this preference, because the Turkish domestic political experience, as well as the Turkish foreign policy experience, is to not interfere in domestic political considerations of a foreign country. So Turkey will not make a statement in expressing its preference. Actually, also from a strategic point of view, that would not be wise for Turkey, because either if Trump or Harris is elected, Turkey will try to improve the relations, Turkey will try to work on, and Turkey will try to enhance the cooperation between these two NATO allies. So the US is quite important for Turkey, and Turkey is quite important for the US. There were some ups and downs in the relationships, especially more downs in recent years. However, Turkey and US need each other. We have seen this. We have seen since the invasion of Ukraine how the Turkish and the American defense industries have cooperated with each other, how the Turkish geopolitical role in the Black Sea region has been more and more underlined. And here we have to see, okay, the Turkish president and the Turkish government will not express a preference, but we see in the Turkish public discourse, in the Turkish public sentiment, that there is a preference for Donald Trump. And this mainly comes with the association between the American elections and the Turkish elections. So in Turkey, there's a strong association with American domestic politics. It's divided into two, and in Turkey we have the pro and anti-Erdogan camp, basically. So there's this association. And secondly, in Turkey, the arguments of Trump and his campaign, electoral campaign, has won over the Turkish public as well. So it were arguments that could be sold in the Turkish public domestic discourse as well. So the public sentiment is in favor of Trump. However, that being said, we have to underline the Turkish-American relations. If there's a good leader-to-leader relationship, definitely good. But the most important part is the relationship between Turkish and American institutions, and they will continue to work.
Okay, Omar, thank you very much. Just stay with us for the moment. We're just going to look at some of the issues now that have been problematic between the United States and Turkey in recent years, particularly the fight against terrorism and also defense cooperation. So let's take a look at my report. In the past few weeks, the Turkish military has been hitting targets in northern Syria, operations there against the YPG terror group. Anyone with an interest in Turkey will know that's nothing new. The US chose to work with the YPG there almost a decade ago in its fight against Daesh. But the Turkish government also sees it as a direct threat on its borders.
In our meetings, we strongly emphasized once again that the US cooperation with the PKK-YPG and FETÖ's presence in the country and unilateral sanctions are incompatible with the split of alliance. We have repeatedly stated that the US must take concrete steps to correct its wrong stance on issues that directly affect our national security.
US officials have said it is supposed to be a temporary arrangement, but so far there's no end in sight. During Donald Trump's first term in office, he ordered a complete withdrawal, only to backtrack after protests from the military and other US officials. It's not clear how much will change if either Donald Trump or Kamala Harris wins. Neither has given an indication that they're about to make a major change in policy. One area, though, where there has been signs of recovery is in defence, although that has also proved problematic. A few years after the US decided to partner with the YPG, the first batteries of the Russian S-400 missile defence system were delivered to Türkiye. Ankara had been unable to buy a Western system and was concerned about the civil war on its border with Syria, including attacks from the YPG and Daesh, so it turned to Moscow. This resulted in Türkiye being removed from a US-led program to construct F-35 fighter jets, and also sanctions on the Turkish defense industry and officials.
Since there is a very serious issue of trust between the two capitals over very, let's say, crucial issues such as YPG and Turkey's national security, this trust has not been, built on other areas either, such as defense areas. So, defense, let's say, cooperation and the faltering defense cooperation thereof is a result of differences over YPG and the damaged, trust.
But there have been signs of a recovery. Sweden and Finland's entry into NATO, with the backing of Türkiye, and concerns about the war in Ukraine, has helped lead to a deal for Ankara to buy F-16 fighter jets from Washington, a sign that solidarity between the two NATO allies is still achievable. Andrew Hopkins, TRT World, Ankara. So let's get into a few of the issues in that particular report, particularly, first of all, on the YPG, this terrorist group here in Turkey, which the US has gone into partnership with almost 10 years ago now. And Omar, you've looked into this quite a lot over the years. So whether it's Kamala Harris or Donald Trump, do you think this relationship is going to change any time in the near future?
So we have to underline the following. The current American policy in Syria will have one ultimate outcome. It is empowering Iran. It's not a direct intentional outcome, but it is the outcome due to the American positioning in Syria. The partnership with the YPG is ultimately empowering Iran. And I do expect, if Trump is elected, that he may change the American position in Syria, which may open a new avenue for Turkey and the US to work together. But if Harris is elected, I expect her to be a more status quo policy in Syria and to try to maintain. However, the issue is the current policy of the US in Syria is not sustainable. So we know that even the Biden administration was looking for a way out of Syria, and in the Harris administration, this search will continue. So, and I argue here for a longer period of time that the way for the US to get out of Syria safely and securely is by working with Turkey. And for that, the US has to abandon the YPG. It may preserve the Syrian Democratic Forces, but the terror element inside this alliance needs to be abandoned. And here there is a possibility for to work together, but this needs more negotiations and discussions between Ankara and Washington. And I'm quite hopeful that after these American elections, these negotiations will kick off.
Mm-hmm. Valeria, do you think, like Omar was saying, Donald Trump in 2019, he tried to withdraw US forces from Syria, but then backtracked after pressure from the military, other politicians. Do you think he might have another go at this time if he wins the election?
I think definitely if Trump comes to power, he will follow the disengagement. I mean, it may keep withdrawing the American troops from Syria and from the whole Middle East. I think nowadays there are around 40,000 American soldiers dislocating all around the region, and the effort as long as he said, but also according to the scientific point of observation, is that America will disengage more from the Middle East. The main priority of Trump is just isolated Iran in the Middle East, and he did back in 2018 by canceling the so-called nuclear deal. However, I do believe that, as a matter of fact, the American support to YPG, as Omar said, will continue. Also, because we need to understand what will happen between Turkey and Syria as well. You know, there is a normalization process going on, but some conditions are set, and both parties are not happy with the conditions. And for Turkey, it's of crucial importance to keep the stability and the security at the Turkish border with Syria, which is a very long line. And also the Kurdish fighter, the so-called terrorist group, they are set there close to the border, and this may create a spillover within the Turkish territory, as it was evident dramatically like some days ago with the terrorist attack here in Turkish in Ankara. So Ankara has to deal and has to cope with the terrorist threat, and unfortunately the tension with America, no matter who was the president, and we started with Obama and then with Trump, was the American support to the Kurdish militias, let's say the Kurdish terrorist group in Syria. And here there is a dystopic perception, because for Turkey, YPG is the same as PKK. America recognized PKK as a terrorist organization. Actually, it's listed internationally and it's recognized by the main international player, but America does not really recognize YPG as a terrorist organization, and this creates tension between the parties.
Okay, Valeria, thank you very much. We're running out of time at the moment, but back to you in the studio in Ankara, many hours to come now, where we're going to find out eventually who's going to be the next president of the United States.